All right. Welcome back to the PCC podcast. And today is a very exciting day because I have a very, very special guest interview with one of our coaches here at PCC. Abby, I don't know how to pronounce your new last name. How do you pronounce it?
Scacera.
Sarah?
Scacera, yeah, like Ska and
Scacera.
then Sarah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Abby Scacera for that's gonna be
Sorry.
Scacera,
Yeah.
formerly DeVito, but has been one of our wonderful coaches with us since January of 2022. So over a year and a half now, which is pretty wild to even just think about. But we are going to just learn about Abby and her story and her mission as a coach here at PCC for all of you, her clients, and all of our clients and listeners to get to know our staff. So welcome. Excited to have you.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So after butchering your last name and a wonderful start, why don't we just start with I actually really want to hear this. I'm very interested to hear it from your perspective now, because I don't know if you've ever actually told me this just like straight through. I want to
Mhm.
know like your origin story with like fitness, like from the beginning, where did it start and how did it kind of progress to where we are now?
Yeah, I was actually like thinking about this today because I feel like I haven't even like thought about it all the way through. And like I feel like you can relate, like being an athlete growing up, like you're always around working out, like to some capacity, right? And it really started like so for anyone who doesn't know, I grew up a volleyball player. That's how I met Marissa and Aaron, just kind of through the grapevine. Marissa and I actually played at the same club for a few years, maybe 1 year.
Just one, I
Um,
think. Yeah.
but so I grew up around volleyball and kind of through that, like was brought into training, like through things like True AP, right? So I was exposed to weightlifting in high school, but just never really like grasped it, was like, whatever, just did it for the sport. And so played beach volleyball in college and was not happy with my body whatsoever. But, was always, placed with a plan, weightlifting plan, just did it to gain strength, speed, right, agility, all of that stuff. And it really wasn't until 2019. I had to scroll back on my Instagram, like when I started. Um, but I got to a point where I was like, I'm so insecure in my body. Like I didn't, had struggles with like my body image and my weight. And I was like, I'm tired of feeling like this. And of course, like followed a bunch of fitness people like to start and downloaded the wonderful MyFitnessPal. So so I actually started out like I think it's kind of a flip with most people. Like most people start on all the cardio equipment stuff. Like I actually went from not having a clue of like how to program my own workouts and I went into weightlifting or just strength training and kind of got like beginner effect, like right, I saw a lot of like change really fast body recomposition, but I also was simultaneously downloaded MyFitnessPal and I thought it was good to have as many calories left over at the end of the day possible. I thought like that meant I was beating the curve. um and so this was in 20, I want to say 2018 to 2019. I was, on a D1 beach volleyball program. So I was already like weightlifting with my team, conditioning in the sand. And then on top of that, like after those workouts, I would go to the gym by myself and like just practice in the gym. Like I had never like weightlifted on my own without someone telling me what to do and tracking on MyFitnessPal. So it was so much at once within a year that like my body changed really quickly. But also like my mind started to warp, like, right, like I was scared to eat out, like all of that stuff, like how do I track that? It became really obsessive. And honestly, I mean, shout out to any of my old teammates who are watching this, like I became just like unenjoyable to be around. Like I didn't want to go out to eat, didn't want to go like to happy hours with them or anything. And I was very narrow minded. Like if you're not doing it my way, like you're not healthy, right? And so so yeah, it was a really big change really fast. And I think until COVID hit and I went home and actually my little sister, Mary Kate, she actually like lifts. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to be like this. Like I think some things, not right with how I'm doing things. And so I think the months that I was, moved back home, it kind of helped mend my relationship with food because my mom was cooking and stuff. And I was like, did you put olive oil in that? Like, I
Yeah.
just noticed a lot of these trends and I was like, and so I wouldn't say I'm perfect now, but like it's taken a long time to like rebuild that like confidence in myself of like, I know what I'm doing now. Like, I can be okay eating this. And I feel like I'm finally at a point, but obviously continuously learning like how to mend that relationship with my body and like have a healthy relationship with like my mind, my body, eating, all that stuff. And I definitely would say I'm in a really healthy place right now. And like I'm really happy with like how I'm doing. But that's kind of a backstory of what brought me there, everything. And
Yeah.
honestly, this past year has just been so fun because I haven't been playing volleyball for the first time like in my whole life. Like, right. So like I
Yeah.
haven't had anyone telling me like you need to do this or you need to be lifting this or do this. And so I think this past year I found a lot about myself and like just like the creativity with fitness too, like the EMOMs and stuff, like just to finally like work out and have fun without like having a specific like target or goal in mind has been really freeing too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it was like your whole life, right? It was literally up to what, 21, 22, 23 years old or something that you had that
Oh my
structure
gosh.
for you.
20, 24,
Wow. Yeah.
24. It's nuts. Yeah. So
Yeah. That's a long time to basically have it kind of done for you, whether great or not, like it was done for
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But I love that. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard you like kind of go through the whole thing, and some of those things I didn't even know. But
Yeah.
it's cool to see how like we have a lot of like ex athletes that we even work with in our program, and I feel like it's that same like redefining fitness for you now to enjoy it, to actually
Right.
like love it again. But I can definitely see how far you've come with just your relationship with food and exercise and how you treat it now. So that's awesome. And then I guess a little bit about your story of like what made you want to get into coaching in the first place. So I know when we met, you were actually a coach at like a boot camp style gym. So you had already kind of taken the plunge of like starting to do some in-person training and wanted to have that be an income source or a career of yours. So what was that transition like?
Yeah. Um, so kind of backstory here. So I graduated in 2020, like my undergrad, and then moved to Florida and decided to do my master's. So like kind of throughout those 2 years, I was like, what am I going to do as my job? And so I was like, really love fitness. I was coming off of this high of like a year and a half of like kind of like really taking a change in my life and my lifestyle like choices. So I was like, I'm gonna become a fitness trainer. And it was actually like the first job I applied and interviewed for down here in Florida. And they were like, let's do it. And so that's how I became. I worked at a place called Fit Body Boot Camp and it's quite early mornings, but I like did fall in love with like just like creating the relationships with our members that we did have and just like bringing the energy and like passion that, just for that connection really. I think that's what really drove me was like the connection that I felt with like our longtime members there and stuff. And then obviously PCC came along and Marissa was like, "Okay, would you want to try this out?" And I was like, "Sure." And then honestly like you really painted the picture for me of just like how many more lives we can touch and reach with online coaching. Like I had never like obviously I had followed a lot of people who were online coaches, um, and yourself obviously, but like didn't understand the impact and like magnitude that we could reach instead of just being in one location, one gym, without the 4 a.m. wake up. So
Yeah.
that was a nice transition. And yeah, so I started out like as a total like kind of newbie. Like I had like the in-person training, obviously form, all that down, but like when you look at PCC, like it is absolutely not just a workout program. Like I think that's like 1% of it. And that is something that was such a huge learning curve for myself, of just, okay, it's not here's your meal plan, here's your workout. Like, what are you struggling with this week? It's like, it's so emotional and it's so mental. And I think that's something I'm still learning to this day, is like, it is not just a simple issue. Like there are so many layers that we have to peel back as coaches, to really get to the root of things. So that's kind of what led me to become a PCC coach. But yeah, it's been cool. I feel like when I came in, you know, PCC has just grown tremendously, and it's been very humbling, and like I'm very grateful to been a part of it. Like from when I knew you as, Marissa Roy Fitness, in your Instagram page.
Well, actually, did you know me as Marissa Fitzpa?
Yes. So like I literally started following you, I think, from those volleyball days.
Yeah, like
And
in
like,
high school.
yep.
I
TJ, or where'd you go
remember,
again? Madison.
yeah.
Madison?
So,
Yeah.
little backstory for like anyone who's like, what the F are they talking about? I
Yeah.
had a fitness page that, well, it was the same fitness page. If you scroll all the way down, it actually is the exact same account, called Marissa Fitzpa. And I don't know, I just thought it sounded kind of cool, but I like what I have now better. But eventually changed the handle. But I started that in high school. And at first it was private, and then I made it public because I didn't think anyone was going to find it, but everybody did.
Yeah.
And then I remember it was a couple years later when I stumbled across Healthy Girl Hacks 18. And I was like, it was on the like suggested that you follow thing, where it's like, it gives you like
Oh.
three people as like people you might know, right? And it was Healthy Girl at Hacks 18. And I was like, I don't know who that is. And I like caught a glimpse of the profile picture. So wait a second. And then I clicked on it. I was like, no way. That's Abby. So what was the inspiration behind the handle? Like what made you come up with that or like start the fitness page in the first place?
Yeah. So I need to scroll back, but I think it was 2018 or 2019 when I started it. And I was living down in Corpus Christi, Texas, where I went to school to play beach volleyball. And I was like balling on a budget because didn't have a job, couldn't have a job. And so I was like trying to grocery shop like within a budget, and like just kind of like I came up, like I think one day I was literally at Walmart, like the grocery store in Walmart, and I was like, what can I name my Instagram? I was like healthy girl, and then I was like thinking that something that would rhyme, and I just did hacks, and I think it was taken, so I put 18 because that was my number at the time. So not very well thought out. That's the story behind it.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and I really started out posting more of like food than anything. Like I was so afraid to post my first workout. Like I don't think I posted a workout for so long. And I honestly maybe have deleted the first one because I was so embarrassed. It was
Humble
embarrassing.
beginnings.
Yeah. But
Humble beginnings.
yeah, that's kind of the background of it.
Yeah, I was just curious. I actually like didn't know if there was a story behind it or not, but it was kind of just like on a whim, which is
Yeah,
cool.
for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, I want to talk a little bit about your journey here as a coach and how you've grown in that because you've grown tremendously since the very beginning. So what have been like some of the mistakes or learning experiences that you've had that have turned you into the coach that you are today?
Oh my gosh. A lot of mistakes. Um, I think I think the coolest part has been like just being in the environment itself that we are at PCC. I think that has helped me tremendously as a coach. Just one, like being vulnerable. For those of any of you who follow the Enneagram, like I'm a number 8, and like to be defensive, have my walls up, and every retreat, every in person, or even on our calls, like we are constantly trying to break down each other's walls, and I'm always like, so I think it's like allowed me to be really vulnerable as just an individual. And like ultimately led me to be a softer like individual and like embrace like the soft side and emotions, which has been really cool and helped me, I feel like, as a coach. I feel like when I started out, I mean, honestly, I think I had like 2 or 3 clients, or just very like they know who they are. Um,
Yeah.
but it was almost like, okay, so I'm supposed to ask them questions, but like I wasn't like digging super deep, right? And like kind of getting into like the internal things. And I think as, you know, we had calls and stuff, like you really taught me to ask like curious questions. And so I think first of all, listening. I feel like I've always been a pretty good listener, but really like just listening to my clients. And then two, like being super curious in my questions. And now that I've been through, I mean, probably 30 plus clients at this point, just everyone is so unique and everyone is so different. And like we can take the same approach and we uphold the same values with each client, but every single one of my clients' journeys has never looked the same. And I feel like you can attest to that for your roster as well.
Yeah.
And so I think learning to be like super adaptive to each of my clients' needs and where they're coming from and what their history is like, has been really cool. I think each of my relationship with each one of my clients is so significantly different in how just our relationship is. But our values are very much the same across the board. So I would say there's still so much I am learning and I need to learn. But I think my clients do an amazing job of like teaching me these things week by week.
Yeah, that's awesome. So just like being that forever learner, right? And just like always trying to become more adaptable and more sensitive to what the people that you're working with are telling you, or, you know, what they need. So that's awesome. And I guess, you know, you said you're constantly trying to get better and learn. So I would be curious to know, like, what are some like skills or areas that you feel like you maybe are lacking a little bit in that you're actually working on currently?
Mm, I think that's a great question. Um, Honestly, like from our coaches call the other day, just like having like more research to back everything up. I feel like kind of across the board, like we have a great like grasp on, you know, what we're preaching here at PCC, what the protocols are, and like have done that research. But I think continuously like looking for those articles, like listening to those podcasts, especially for, you know, someone like myself of I didn't start my journey until a few years ago. And so there's just so much information out there and just kind of sorting through like what's credible and what's not, just to kind of bring that knowledge to our clients as well. Because I definitely would say I'm not a nerd in that sense. Like I don't crave that information just naturally. So I think just being more intentional with, you know, seeking that information out to bring not only to myself, but to my clients and PCC as a whole. So, um, yeah, that's something that I feel like I'm definitely like aware of and like wanting to pursue more.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, yeah, because it's something that doesn't come naturally to you, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I'm not actively just doing that in my free time because that's what I want to
Yeah.
learn. It's like, but it's important to you, so it's something that you want to prioritize. So that's a great
Yeah.
answer. That's a great
Thanks.
answer. Cool.
Yeah.
What would you say is an area of coaching that you've grown most passionate about through your time here?
Oh. Um, I think really just the connection with each of my clients. I would say like getting to know them on a personal level, I feel like has really helped me just understand not only their goals and like outcomes that they want to reach better, but just like understanding like where they're coming from and how they're approaching it like in their own head.
Yeah.
Um, so and I love like the small talk with my clients, like getting on a call and just being like, you did this week? Awesome. Like because I love to talk about that too, like the small stuff. So I think really building that trust with your clients is huge. And I think that's something that another mistake I didn't do in the beginning of being a coach, of just being like, I'm your coach, like, respect me. Like, I, like, but like, they're just like us. And I was in their shoes like 4 years ago, 5 years ago or whatever. And so I think just, you know, understanding that we're both communicating as human beings and we both have made mistakes, but I think that connection can be made just from the beginning of our coaching relationship, and almost like a friendship bonds too as well, like seeing our clients succeed and then like going on their own ways. It's almost like, oh, I'm like losing my friend, but yeah, so I would definitely say connection overall is something that I feel like I've improved with and how I approach like making that connection as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's something that I feel like stands out with the relationships that you have with your clients. Like they are diehard Abby. Like I just Abby fans. I love it. But I really do see it. It's like the time and the energy that you spend in like really crafting that relationship with them. And I think there's a quote that really rings true with this, that is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So like with the research thing, it's like, they're probably like, cool, that's great and all, but like, I'm just really happy that you give a shit about me,
Yeah.
And I think that that's really hard to find, and just people like willing to really invest themselves into others, because that's energy and that's time. But it's what makes the journey worthwhile, I feel like. So
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, just like having someone that finally like is backing them up and believing in them. Because like a lot of these clients or individuals are coming to us from, an environment where they're not supported with these goals. And so I think also approaching it with that, like, I'll be your
yeah.
biggest fan, your biggest confidant, like I'm ready to support you. And I think that lights a fire under our clients as well, of just being like, wow, they're actually rooting me on and not just being like, here's what you need to do. And so
Yeah.
I try to put myself in their shoes. Like if that was me a few years ago, like I would have loved having someone being like, you actually are doing a good job, even if you don't feel like it. So
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, I'm curious, like in terms of just the volleyball background, right? Like you and I both grew up with coaches on our backs 24/7 for our entire childhood and like even early adult life. So what was that shift like, going from like basically client or player to coach? Like, did you have lessons of like coaching strategies that you wanted to bring from coaches that you loved, or things you wanted to avoid doing, or did you notice that discrepancy as you stepped into the coach role?
oh my gosh, this is such a good question. So back, like stepping backwards to like when I first started my fitness journey, like I felt very entitled, and like I was a captain on both of like my teams in undergrad and then like grad school. But like looking back on the type of leader I was, in 2019, 20, was just like very forceful and like, I'm above you, like you need to do this, seniority, all that stuff. And I think that kind of stemmed from like having so many controlling coaches like in my life. And you can probably relate to this. Like, I mean, I had more bad coaches than good coaches, I would say. But that's just part of like the nature of it.
Yeah.
But definitely like transitioning from like being that type of leader and then come to when I was in grad school, I was like, I was so, I wouldn't say rude, but just like, that's not who I want to be as a leader, as an individual, and just kind of had a big change of heart during 2020. Um, and came to like Palm Beach Atlantic, where I played grad school, and was like, I want to be the leader that people feel safe coming to, that, actually want to listen to and not just do what I tell them because I'm a captain or a leader. And so I did a lot of internal work during 2020 of just being like, how am I going to be respected? How is this going to be received? And so really tried to just be a very gracious like leader, my past 2 years of playing beach volleyball. So I think that transition from when I like was like, I need to stop being like this and like controlling and, demeaning, just like not having a great demeanor as like a captain. And my coach, my past 2 years, she was amazing. And I really respected her as an individual. And so I think I was like, that's what I want to be like. And so I think kind of stepping into the coach role, it was almost more of like, I do not want to be if like, you need to do this or I'm going to be mad at you. Like, it's almost like I'm here to support you, and like you can come to me with your issues, with your problems, and we're going to work this out together.
Mm.
So yeah, definitely a really big shift in like how I carried myself as a leader throughout the years. And I would definitely say I have leadership qualities. Like I'm not afraid to say that, but I think those can be abused. And I definitely did abuse them like a few years ago. And so kind of like revamping what that looked like for me has been huge. And just like being at PCC, I mean, you're our boss, but like I feel like you're one of us, and you do a really great job of just feeling like we can come to you like you're another coach. And like it's very like even keeled, and that's something that I feel like I worked really hard to achieve, to earn the trust of like my other teammates the past few years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really crazy because like I can't even imagine you being that way now. Like it just because I've only really known you, I guess, in this like later season
Yeah.
of it where you kind of evolved and said like I don't want to be that way anymore. But yeah, I could just not imagine you like abuse of power or being like super like dictator or
I
anything
know.
like
I
that.
know. And I hate to say that I was, but it's like it's cool to see the change that's happened. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I've honestly gone back to like old teammates and been like, I'm really sorry. Like I feel really bad. And we're all good now. But yeah, it's definitely been a journey the past few years, and just I think also just like finding who I am. I feel like that stemmed from the insecurity of like not feeling confident in myself and who I was.
Yeah.
And then finally being like, I'm sick of this. Like I want to be confident in who Abby is. And then finally found that, and took time to like get to where I am now and like finally feeling confident in myself. But yeah, it's a crazy journey that we all go through kind of throughout
Yeah.
this process.
Absolutely. But I love how you really related the like leadership aspect of like being a team captain and being a leader to coaching, because not everyone would make that link. But as a coach here and with your clients, you are a leader and you're leading by example and you're leading them every single day. So I think it's great that you were able to make that parallel as well with the journey. But you
Yeah.
did spark a pretty heavy question next because I like don't even have this written down. I'm just going off the cuff
Okay.
now. But you mentioned, you know, this journey that you've been on and how your relationship with yourself has transformed. And as you know, our mission here is to ignite individualized transformation in the way that millions of women view themselves and their and dieting and their bodies and fat loss. And so I guess like, you know, when it comes to that journey, like how would you say you see the parallels between your journey and the transformation you've made with yourself and the one that you're trying to ignite in your clients?
Ooh, hammer off. Um, Man, this is good. I think I see my clients who come to me, and I mean, obviously they come to us in all different stages. But I see myself a few years ago of just being like, I'm broken, I can't change, I'm tired of feeling like this. And then coming out the other side and being like, wow, I can live this life that I want to live. And I feel great doing it. And like having that hope for our clients that maybe they don't see for themselves. You know, a lot of people come to us with really low confidence, or there's definitely points in the journey where it's highs, and then, you know, our clients will go through really lows as we will as well. So I think igniting that hope in them, and just like the faith that, you know, the outcomes will come. Like you just need to stay patient and faithful to the process. Um, because I mean, the process can stink sometimes. Like it's tough. And we're
Yeah.
going to go through really low lows. Um, but I think igniting in our clients that like the outcomes will come. Like you just need to stay patient, and giving them the hope, um, and support when they don't have it for themselves, I think is huge, especially for, you know, the women that we deal with. So would definitely say would say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just that borrowed belief is the concept that I've heard of, or I guess I heard it as a term lately, and I was like, what is that? And I realized it's exactly what you said, borrowed belief. If you don't have the belief in yourself, just borrow it from someone else. We have it for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So really being like the safekeeper of that belief for our clients to borrow and to use and to go off of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think definitely like, I mean, we both have had goals, we've accomplished them, like come out, you know, like been like feeling great. And I think a lot of our clients, you know, and myself included, like can get very nearsighted. It's like, you know, our weekly check-ins and stuff. It's like, what did you do this week? But I think a lot of times we lose sight of like, okay, well, what are we working towards in a year from now? Like, what does, you know, what do you look like in 2 years from now? And so I think kind of reminding our clients this is a very long journey, and it's a lifelong journey. And I think a lot of our clients do a great job like grasping onto that, but like that is not a natural thought to have like when you're coming to us from whatever background they do. And so I think constantly instilling in them that this is a long journey. You're in it for the long game, long term, and it's not a monthly, weekly process. It's going to take a long time. And once our clients buy into that, they're like, wow, okay, like I can do this.
Yeah.
So I think just reminding them of that, and myself as well.
Totally. Yeah. And I think the analogy that comes to mind for me with that is like, I think I was told this through just like business mentorship about like clients and working with clients, but it's like the analogy is that like, when people come to us, they are in hell, their own version of hell. They don't see heaven, they just see out of hell. Right. So like that's really where it's like when we're saying like, oh, you're so narrow focused, or like you're only focused on the short term, it's like you can't help it. Like
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
literally like you're in this hell, all you can focus on is how to get out of here. And that's why the quick fixes and the fast results and everything seems so appealing and is so tempting.
Yeah,
But it's like, but if you knew that there was a heaven that you could get to, and that is like the evolution of like who you are and your personal development and like all of the ways that your life changes when you go on this journey, it's like
yeah,
you can get to that heaven. It's just they don't know it, they don't see it, so it's like you can't blame them, but like that's the way that I kind of see that, you know what I mean?
yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I think that's like such a big part of when we bring clients on, like our onboarding process of like that map. Like they have never, most people have never seen, like, how are we going to walk you through from where you are right now to where you want to be in a year, 2 years, whatever the timeline may be. And I think kind of mapping out like exactly how we're going to go through that. Like they've probably never had someone tell them like this is exactly what the process is going to be like. Um, from point A to point B. It's not going to be perfect, but these are the steps we're going to follow. um and I think that helps kind of create the picture first for them of being like, okay, like this is attainable. It doesn't seem I have to go from here to here with nothing in between.
Yeah,
So I think that's part of our process that is really great for clients to see up front.
totally. Yeah, it can create a lot of clarity and eliminate a lot of overwhelm.
Yeah.
um awesome. Well, I guess I'm just curious, like this is probably one of my last questions, but outside of just coaching, outside of just the realm of PCC here, I would love to know like just what is something that you are working on for yourself, your fitness, just in your life personally, that maybe your clients or those who listen could just relate to a little bit more with.
Ooh, this is a great question. I'll give you kind of two answers. The first one is, I listen to Marilyn's podcast, but mine's a little bit different in a different way of just like treating my body as a temple that the Lord has given us. Faith is really important to me. And I think that's what brought me out of just my really low point in 2020. Like that whole shift was like, I don't want to be treating people like this. Like the Lord doesn't treat me like this. Like he loves me. I can love other people. And so I think just continually spending time with him helps me reflect his light to my clients, to people around me. And it's a daily battle. Like there's a lot of times where I want to be rude or mean, and it's like, okay, I don't need to do that. Um, so I think that's something I'm continually, every day working on, and it's not easy. It's not a easy process, but definitely like feel refined by just my journey with the Lord for the past 3 years. I feel like I've really like just bought into it. So that's the first thing. Um, Second thing is what I'm working on. I think just like slowing down. I think for the past like 6 years of playing volleyball and like just being on the go, 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 getting married, like having a bajillion like random things to do. Um, like just like being able to sit still with myself. I feel like that's something that like is really hard for me of being like, well, I could go for a walk or I could do this or I could do this. And it's like, you can sit on the couch and be okay for 2 hours. And so I think, yeah, these past few months, like just being like really okay to sit with my thoughts and like not grab for my phone or not have to listen to music, and just kind of like sit with what I'm thinking. Because I definitely say like the past few months, like just my mind has been racing a lot more. Like I just have a lot more thoughts of like different things going on in my life. And instead of trying to cope with that with like more stuff out on my plate, like kind of taking the reins off, being like, actually, we're going to take stuff off your plate and see how you feel. And I think that's been really hard, but also really good. because my husband, he could chill all day, and that is so
Yeah.
not me. And so our weekends, like I'm like, I just need to relax and like be okay with it. And so that's something I'm still working on. And it's still, I mean, it's still honestly a struggle, but definitely feel like more okay with it. I'm not freaking out as much as I probably would have.
Yeah. Oh, I can relate to that last one. Actually, I can relate to both, but definitely the last one. I'm always that way as well. I feel like it's like the high achiever's curse.
Yeah, I feel like you might have it worse than me, but I'm like, yeah.
Maybe. We don't need to compare vices. But I have only one more question for you, and that is just a question that I've asked the other two coaches on their interviews as well. And that would be, if you had to give a listener, whether they're a client or just some random person who stumbled across our podcast, one piece of advice about how to truly make healthy living sustainable and make a permanent change in their lifestyle, what would that be?
Oh, peace. Um, wow. I think to really simplify it is, it sounds cliche. It's like just focus on one thing at a time. And I think that's what we take pride in here at PCC, is not overwhelming our clients. And when I look back at my own journey, like I threw everything in at once and then it crashed and burned. And then, I had to mend it. I think a lot of our clients are coming from that, from fad diets and the yo-yo cycle, and they try these extremes or they try multiple things at once and then they realize I can't sustain this, so pull back on everything, and then the weight comes back or whatever comes back. um so I would really encourage our clients or whoever's listening just to pick one thing that you want to focus on this week, and until that becomes a habit, like add another thing on and another thing on. And I think just making it easier on yourself, and to have fun with the process. Like, you're trying new things, like it's not going to be easy, but especially for our clients who are already in PCC, like take advantage of our community too. Like there are so many women who are going through similar things, and I love our office hours because people get on there and they're like, "Oh, I'm not insane for thinking that."
Yeah.
Um, so I think really just like simplifying it for yourself. It's easier said than done. But picking one thing that you want to work towards or take action towards, and kind of lead that into your next goal and continuation of your journey.
I love it. Simplifying. I like it. I think it's a very actionable step that someone can take today, and even start right now. But I think we already covered this a little bit, but just as a reminder, where can the people find you?
Healthy Girl Hacks 18. I'm on Instagram. And I don't have anything else, so just Instagram.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was great. I'm really, really happy that we did this, and I'm so excited for this episode to come out. But if you like this episode, maybe you're one of Abby's clients or another one of our clients, or just some random person, reach out to her to let her know that her vulnerability and her sharing was super appreciated, because I learned a lot even about you today, Abby, and I know that your clients and everyone else will as well. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode today. Make sure that you are subscribed to the PCC podcast on Apple or Spotify. And thank you again for your attention, as we know it's your most valuable resource. And we will hope to see you back next week.